Hi folks, glad you're here because today we're breaking down one of the most tone-deaf grifts Democrats have pulled ever. See, back in January, wildfires tore through Altadena, Eaton Canyon, and the Pacific Palisades here in Los Angeles, destroying homes, killing at least 29 people, and forcing thousands to evacuate. And while families were running for their lives, our mayor, Karen Bass, was in Ghana on a taxpayer-funded heritage tour, posting selfies like she was on vacation. Gavin wasn't much help either, faking a phone call with the president to avoid talking to a woman who was devastated by the loss of her home. Then came Fire Aid. On January 30th, Democrats and their celebrity friends threw a massive concert fundraiser featuring Billie Eilish, Lady Gaga, Green Day, and dozens more. It raised over $100 million for wildfire relief through ticket sales, donations, and corporate sponsors. The message was clear: help is on the way. But according to reports, when the first round of grants rolled out, not $1 went directly to victims. Instead, tens of millions were funneled to over 120 nonprofits, many run by Democrat insiders, packed with consultants and DEI staffers, raking in six-figure salaries to coordinate recovery. According to multiple interviews with actual fire victims, none of them have actually seen a dime of that money. And I don't think anybody's surprised, honestly, because this is the Democrat formula, folks. Disappear during the disaster, host a concert to look compassionate, and make sure the only people getting relief are the ones on payroll. So today, we're pulling back the curtain on how these Democrats turned wildfire victims into props and pocketed the applause. Let's get into it.
A reader sent me a little note and said, I've never seen any fire aid money. How do I apply for fire aid money? And I thought, well, I've never thought about that. There's 12,000 people, basically 12,000 homes gone. Those people probably want to know where the money is. This will be an easy task to find out. So I contacted the Annenberg. They never responded.
And the Annenberg is
Foundation, because they are overseeing the wildfire funds, yes. So I emailed them several times. They never responded. I called them several times. They never responded. And finally, it was like almost 2 weeks later, a woman got back to me and she said, I'm sorry for the delay. The person you need to speak to is Chris Wallace. He's a media spokesperson for wildfire funds. So I contacted Chris and I said, victims want to know when they can get their money. Seems like a very simple question. Basically, they don't. All this money are going to nonprofits, and then nonprofits will take care of making sure the money's distributed.
This is beyond absurd. What we're seeing here isn't just bureaucratic incompetence, it's the fully matured rot of a Democrat political culture where their institutions have replaced direct accountability with nonprofit shell games. Tens of thousands of Californians lost their homes in the Palisades fire, and over $100 million was raised, promoted as emergency relief for those victims, but not a dime has reached them. Why? Because the money didn't go to victims. It went to nonprofits, many aligned with Democrat causes, staffed by executives making six figures to administer aid through vague bureaucratic pipelines that never deliver. This is the end result of a worldview that treats government as a middleman for moral performance, not real service. The language of equity and community partnership becomes a smokescreen for institutional failure, where the suffering of actual people is monetized, it's abstracted, and filtered through layers of professional empathy. And the media is silent until a random citizen asked the obvious question: where's the money? This story reveals just how deeply the Democrat machine has embedded itself in philanthropy, in PR, and public trust, in the media. It's not about helping people anymore. It's about managing the optics, protecting their Democrat network, and pretending the grift is compassion.
So I looked at initially they gave $50 million to about 120 nonprofits.
Wow.
And I looked at these nonprofits, and one of them said, we help mobile home parks.
What?
And there were 2 mobile home parks in the Palisades, all low income. And so I contacted the people there. They had never received any money. They had never heard of that. When you go through, I would urge everyone to just go to the nonprofits that are listed if you want a good laugh. I mean, one of the nonprofits cleans preschool bathrooms. Well, after the fire, who knows? Maybe there is a preschool bathroom that needs cleaning.
It would be laughable if it wasn't so tragic, because what this exposes isn't just corruption, it's a fully operational worldview where doing good is outsourced to a maze of nonprofits whose true function is to just absorb the funding and deflect any scrutiny. This isn't a glitch in the Democrat model. It is the model. The blurring of public service and private enrichment is now baked into their system, where credentials, connections, and virtue signaling replace competence and results. Fire aid is just the latest example of how Democrats have turned suffering into a commodity. You have to look no further than the homeless crisis in Los Angeles to find another clear example. Tens of billions of dollars over a period of 5 years vanished. And nobody can tell you where that money went. Because at the end of the day, Democrats don't want to solve any sort of crises. They want to find a reason to justify the endless funding for auxiliary causes that have nothing to do with the emergency at hand, but everything to do with sustaining their political ecosystem. It reflects a deeper cultural decay where institutions no longer feel responsible for the people they claim to serve, only for the optics of care, while they line their pockets with Benjamins. And in that sense, the victims here aren't just the people who lost their homes. They're the ones who still believe the system was meant to help them. But just when you think it can't get any worse, folks, it does. It really does.
Tension building in Altadena's burn zone. Fox 11. Residents now worried about squatters setting up camp on charred properties.
No, we're not. I'm not no squatter here.
This man says he's now living next to his family's lot while another trailer across the street is fenced off.
Are you home?
No answer.
I've been texting back and forth to the neighbors. They reassure me these are squatters.
Luke Melcher is a contractor working in the LA fire areas.
We just got told some squatters were out here.
This week, he confronted the man neighbors believe to be trespassing in Altadena.
That's the most insane thing.
Squatters are overtaking vacant lots.
And then posted this video gaining hundreds of thousands of views.
And the property owner can't get them off.
The LA County Sheriff's Department disputes the Instagram, telling media outlets the individuals in question were residents of Altadena prior to the devastating Altadena-Eaton fire.
I've talked to multiple sheriff's deputies, and they said, oh yeah, we've gotten reports of squatters. And then I see an official statement that says the opposite.
As Luke makes the point, you've got 12,000 lots, and it's a squatter's paradise.
California governor candidate Steve Hilton saw the video and wanted to visit the questioned properties himself.
Squatting across the state is a massive problem. We saw a house burn down in Hollywood not that long ago. I believe you covered that. The system seems to be on the side of the people who do the wrong thing.
A lot of homeowners trying to deter squatters, adding these private property no trespassing signs.
I don't understand why it should be such a battle to remove someone from your property.
There are no active reports of squatting.
LA Councilwoman Tracy Park sharing this video addressing similar concerns in Pacific Palisades. Well, LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger's office tells us they haven't received any calls or complaints from Eden Fire constituents about squatters on private property. So off camera, a member of the LA County Sheriff's Department tells me while the two properties from Instagram are in question, they have responded to, quote, a handful of squatters in Altadena since the fire in January.
Imagine that, folks. Your home burns down and you're barred from rebuilding because the governor and the mayor refuse to override the environmental lobby that has them in their pockets. Then, to top it off, squatters start camping on your scorched lot while local leaders shrug and pretend absolutely nothing's happening. Now, I think it goes without saying that this isn't just policy failure. It's what happens when ideological capture replaces actual governance. Gavin and Karen didn't just fail to prepare for the fires or respond effectively. They created the conditions for ongoing chaos by surrendering every ounce of common sense to activist lobbies and a legal system that punishes property owners for simply trying to reclaim what's theirs. What we're witnessing in Altadena isn't just about squatters, by the way. It's the collapse of institutional responsibility. It's a political class led by Democrats so obsessed with optics and environmental virtue signaling that they've paralyzed their own ability to protect the very people who pay their bills. And make no mistake, this isn't accidental. It's purposeful negligence. Democrats have no interest in fixing the problem because they don't want these homeowners back. They want the land. Burned out lots mean open real estate for their pet affordable housing projects, funded by taxpayers and controlled by the same political insiders who created the crisis in the first place and then refused to fix it. See, when bad actors face zero consequences and victims are left to fight the bureaucracy alone, it's not just failure. It's abandonment disguised as leadership. And the cultural rot driving it is no accident. It's the result of decades of single-party Democrat rule in a state where policy is designed to elevate slogans over results.
So this is the latest out in the LA fire zones. All of the properties that have not been cleared of their fire debris or who did not opt in to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers debris program has been served with one of these notices like you see behind me here.
Wow.
This gives the homeowner 7 days with a deadline ending on June 1st to pull a permit with a private contractor, or the county, as it says here in the notice, will come out, clear the property, declaring it a nuisance, and the homeowner will be responsible for the expense. So when we started this whole program, the Corps of Engineers did everything they could to keep the private sector out and not allow us to work. Now we have a deadline of June 1st to pull permits and June 30th to complete the work, or else the county will start putting liens on these properties essentially. So again, government doing everything they can to consolidate all of this work for themselves and keep the private sector out.
And just when you thought the situation couldn't get any more infuriating, in come the Democrats to make your blood boil. These lien threats aren't just bureaucratic overreach, folks. They're part of a deeper, calculated pattern of displacement dressed up as public safety. See, what's happening in Pacific Palisades reflects a growing trend where disaster isn't used to actually rebuild these communities, but to actually reshape them. And here's how this works. The state refuses to clear brush before fire season. They refuse to fill the reservoirs leading up to fire season. Then they slash the fire budget and gut the citizen fire volunteer programs. And then when the inevitable fires break out, the state stands by while homes burn and underfunded fire crews struggle to respond. Once the damage is done, officials show up for their photo ops, make empty promises, install aid. They block private contractors, impose layers of draconian red tape, and when residents can't navigate the mess fast enough, they slap liens on the properties and declare them nuisances. This is purposeful dysfunction, folks. It's a strategy that lets local officials quietly clear out homeowners and open the door to government-led redevelopment under the feel-good label of climate resilience or affordable housing. Meanwhile, actual public nuisances like rioters, encampments, squatters get a free pass from a system more devoted to ideology than actual justice. This is where Democrat governance leads, folks. Private property hollowed out by the crisis, then handed over to state-aligned developers under the illusion of progress. It's not about actually helping fire victims. It's about replacing them. When are we going to wake up to this?
Ross Greenberg is a Palisades resident who is trying to get back into his home. Ross, you are committed to rebuilding. I know you live just a few blocks away here. What's happened with that process? You've submitted all your paperwork.
We submitted our permits in April. We were approved early June. We were ready to build. We have to now grade our land, and that's been an ordeal. We've been waiting 6 weeks for that permit, but we've been told multiple things. First thing was they wanted us to put up a sign that waited 30 days to notify our neighbors of the excavation. We don't have a neighbor right now. Their home was lost as well. That was waived on Friday. Then we were told yesterday we need a grading bond. I'm not quite sure what that is because the amount that we're grading is more than 250 yards. We're doing this removal and recompaction. So we're removing 5 feet of soil, recompacting it so we can build our foundation. So we can't do anything until that's taken care of.
So you've got contractors waiting. Your contractor's sitting on go and has been since what, June, April?
June.
Well, what happened? They said this was all going to be fast-tracked.
My office is leading the city effort to clear the way. Red tape, bureaucracy, all of it must go.
We need to do more, and we need to be better in terms of accelerating these efforts.
You do nothing!
Look around. How many houses are being constructed? I think there's maybe a dozen right now under construction. They've forgot about the Palisades. I mean, it's not the focus. You know, President Trump came here a few months ago and sat with Karen Bass, and they talked about expediting. I mean, we'd love for him to come back and meet her or meet the residents again. I know, Rick Grinnell is is his czar. We haven't really heard much from him. He's been a little MIA. It'd be great to have him come back and help us as well. Now that the federal government has left, I think people are going to start to see what's happening locally.
And this is happening to people who actually have the financial viability to withstand this process and jump through these hoops to rebuild, folks. Imagine what it's like for those who don't. And it's a lot of people. What's unfolding in the Palisades isn't just a logistical nightmare. It's a case study in how modern Democrat governance weaponizes bureaucracy to essentially disenfranchise everyone. Homeowners who lost everything are being trapped in a maze of contradictory rules, phantom permits, grading bonds, neighborhood notices for neighbors who no longer exist, all while city officials boast about leading the effort to streamlining the process. The reality is this, folks. Nothing is being streamlined. There is no effort from our local government. Karen is lost, focused about her reelection. Newsom is trying to run for president. None of these people care. They're all purposely allowing this to fall by the wayside. They want this to be stalled because the stall is the point. This is what happens when leadership is more invested in optics than actual outcomes, where announcements substitute for action, and the private sector is forced to wait on a system designed to keep it idle. The broader pattern here is one of quiet displacement, okay? Delaying rebuilding just long enough that residents either give up or just get pushed out, all while the state reserves the right to step in later with its own vision of equity housing and climate-smart development. It's a slow-motion seizure of land wrapped in paperwork and justified by the process. And if this is what happens to middle and upper income families, look, folks, I don't think I have to repeat myself here, but just to drive the point home, if this is what happens to middle and upper income families in the Palisades, what chance do ordinary Americans have in a system built to exhaust them into surrender?
Was the number of homes here, or empty lots, I should say, which have for sale signs in front of them. Okay, now to the question of the Santa Ynez Reservoir. Remember, it was empty during the fires and largely blamed for the hydrants having no water in them. Yeah. I went to check it out for myself. I have to be honest, from a distance, it appears to be empty. In fact, no different than what I saw it looking like during the fires. So I reached out to the Department of Water and Power, and they told me it's been repaired and filled with 45 million gallons of water. So I sent them the same images that I'm showing you to ask, where's the water? At this point, they're now not returning my calls, texts, nor emails. I'm trying to ask for clarity if what we're seeing is a cover over the water or where exactly the water is. So another big story that's coming out of this area now is that the governor's office announced that there were...
Well, it looks like they didn't learn the first time. You want to bet they won't learn the second either? Now, folks, this specific reservoir, if you'll remember, was left empty shortly before the fire started. And now the LADWP is claiming that it's full. Yet, when asked to prove it, they go silent, as though our eyes betray us. Why? Because they don't care if you know they're lying. See, the head of the LADWP makes nearly $500,000 a year and pulled this exact same stunt last year. Deny, deflect, and wait for the public to move on. This isn't just plain miscommunication. It's a culture of calculated apathy. Career bureaucrats like this aren't accountable to the public for the outcomes they produce. They're accountable to literally nothing. They know it's very hard for them to get fired. They know no media outlet will actually press them. And they know the system exists to protect them, not serve you. And this is the real crisis here, folks. Not just that critical infrastructure failed, but that no one in charge feels even a flicker of urgency to fix it. Because power in this system doesn't flow from results. It flows from permanence of crises. These are people whose whole job revolves around keeping their job. They will lie, cheat, steal, stall, and obfuscate until you give up, because that's the playbook. And every time we let it slide, the lie gets a little bit bigger, and the rot gets deeper, and the public gets further shut out of the institutions we're still somehow expected to trust.
So another big story that's coming out of this area now is that the governor's office announced that there was $101 million in taxpayer money that's going to be used to build multifamily affordable housing for renters in all of the areas that were impacted by the fires. I just happened to run into LA City Councilwoman Tracy Park. She represents this district here on the street. I asked her about that money. Will we see affordable housing go up here in the Palisades? She says she has a lot of serious questions about that, claiming that this area doesn't have the infrastructure to build dense housing here, and also wants the charm of the community to remain intact.
It's no longer a conspiracy theory, folks. It's actually happening. Democrats dragged their feet during the fires, blocked homeowners from rebuilding, and let squatters take over scorched properties, and are now proudly announcing over $100 million in taxpayer money to build dense government-backed housing in those exact neighborhoods. This isn't recovery, folks. It's replacement. What we're witnessing is a deliberate strategy to use this crisis as a lever for transformation. Stall the rebuild process, frustrate the original residents, and then reimagine the land through the lens of communism. And when even the LA City Council member starts pushing back, saying the Palisades lacks the infrastructure and wants to preserve its character, you know this isn't about meeting real needs. It's about enforcing the Marxist vision. The vision isn't merit-based. It's not organic. It's imposed. It's a quiet, very visible revolution. This moment reveals the left's growing obsession with remaking communities by force, because that's how you strip people of everything. You strip them of private property. They own everything from the state. It's the Chinese business model, folks, where your home is owned by the state, and you essentially have a lease on it until you no longer exist. And who makes that decision? You or the state. There's never been more evident that Democrats allowed this neighborhood to burn, now are attempting to rebuild it in this Marxist philosophy while calling all of this justice. This playbook isn't new, folks. It's borrowed from China, and Democrats are using it because they're in bed with the CCP. Some of their biggest funders, especially in California, are CCP-adjacent organizations that specialize in buying silence, influence, and land. So ask yourself, when your home is burned down, when your neighborhood is hollowed out, and when the land you once owned is turned into a state-controlled housing project, who really won? Who benefits from replacing stable, independent property owners with centralized renters dependent on government subsidies? What we're seeing isn't just mismanagement. It's soft colonization by ideology and capital. And the most dangerous part, they don't need your permission. They just need your compliance. So the real question is, how much of your community are you willing to watch disappear before you stop trusting the narrative and start recognizing the real pattern at play? Don't let the Marxists take everything that you have away from you, folks, because right now, it's the Palisades. Tomorrow, it's your home. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.